I think that parents can be trusted to seek out resources as necessary that are uniquely focused on their individual situations. So, jumping forward here, we've introduced an exemption this time on the basis that plenty of parents like myself do not feel comfortable giving these tests. And the reason why I mention that is that this really gets down to the issue of accountability in general. And one of our main tenets one of the main things that I've recognized in speaking with a lot of my clients who are public school teachers and other homeschoolers is that we share that mutual goal of quality education. I think what we need to distinguish between, though, is how can we actually impact the quality of an education. Unfortunately, I say this unfortunately because I feel sorry for some of my public school friends, teacher friends. The provisions of No Child Left Behind introduced some very big changes for public schools in the sense that they're very much focusing on, or at least they have in the past, standardized achievement testing as being one of the primary mechanisms to see whether or not a school district is coming up to where they need to be. But one of the biggest things that's come out of that is to see national organizations like the National Education Association, the United Nations affiliated education group, and others really being worried about this focus, simply because I think anybody that's involved with actually educating a child would understand, similar to what Representative Damshin was mentioning, that the quality of an education is directly proportionate to the quality of the relationship between the teacher and the pupil. And unfortunately, over-reliance on standardized achievement testing tends to distract people from that core point. And as we've seen in most states, a myopic focus on the testing issue actually ends up, at the very least, it does nothing to improve educational outcomes. At the very worst, it may be detrimental. And so, really this gets back to what we've been saying all along, that our proposal this time is about introducing as much flexibility as is possible into our homeschool law to account for the successful diversity that is home education. And in the light of the controversy about standardized achievement testing as a method of assessing learning, we're proposing an alternative. I want to come back to the issue of quality, though, for a second, because I know that it's very directly related to one of the most common objections that comes up whenever we talk about relaxing homeschool standards. And that has to do with what Chuck was mentioning. What about the children that are at risk? What about the children that are going to fall through the cracks, so to speak? Now, it is true that a lot of the same students that are at risk in homeschools are at risk in the public school environment. But what that really illustrates is that the solutions to that problem are very similar from the public school to the homeschool. And it gets back to that relationship between the quality of an education and the quality of the relationship. I think, in North Dakota, we're legitimately proud of the fact that on average our students do very well on standardized achievement tests. So do homeschoolers. And that's something that's been shown in a lot of different states. But I think that what we can really pat ourselves on the back for here in North Dakota is not necessarily, whatever we think about the public school system, successful schools depend on successful families. And the fact that our schools are doing as well as they are is more a reflection of the quality of our families in North Dakota than it is anything. And that's also true in the scenario of homeschooling. And so any discussion of quality really needs to focus on that base unit, that core family unit. I've had so many public school teachers complain to me, if I don't have the support of the parent, how am I supposed to correct that in however many hours I'm given in the day? It gets worse as the child gets older. If you get into high school and they start to have destructive peer groups and other influences, it's a huge job for teachers to try to do. And so I guess the point of this is that any attempt to merely legislate a solution for quality, which is what we're really caring about here, needs to at least recognize that that's where the actual difference exists. And so local solutions need to be found for these problems, to support those family units, to go to the root of the problem. In the home education movement, I mentioned earlier that we're a community that is evolving to meet our needs. It's like any mature movement that is successful and broad-based, that it's only natural that we're going to have specific solutions for our unique challenges. And that's what we're really seeing develop. I'm very proud and privileged to be part of one such organization in the North Dakota Homeschool Association, which is similarly evolving to meet these types of challenges. We've kind of morphed from an organization that had much more to do with legalizing homeschooling to now supporting families. And I guess in keeping with that, to kind of show the direction that we're headed with this, that specifically addresses both the quality concern as well as the falling through the cracks. There was a recent position statement made, voted on by the Board of Directors for the North Dakota Homeschool Association, that says that we are refining our vision towards a comprehensive relational homeschool information system with mission to recruit, train, launch, support, and protect every willing North Dakota homeschool family in the credible methods of parent-directed education. I think you will be pleasantly surprised to see some of the things that are coming down the pipe in the way of mentoring systems and in terms of databases to help families that actually are struggling, and really, again, helping parents to continue that proud tradition of academic excellence in North Dakota. I urge you to support this bill to expand flexibility in light of the coming of age of our movement, because we truly, this isn't 1987 anymore. We have such a profound availability of resources and support structures that we need to change our law to reflect the successful diversity that is home education. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Representative Carls.
Thank you, Chairman Kelch. Dr. Stegman?
Yes.
Would you tell us what year you graduated from your homeschool, where you attended college, and where you received your Doctor of Veterinary Medicine degree?
Madam Chair and Representative Kelch,
Carls.
I knew I was going to get that wrong.
That's
Patience,
okay.
thank you, thank you.
That's okay.
Protocol.
Fargo Board today, she was accredited. I was accredited for a question that you asked. You're welcome. Thank you very much.
In answer to your question, I graduated from my parents' home educational program. It would have been in 1999. I had just turned 16 at that time, and I went directly into the fall program at North Dakota State University, majored in microbiology and food safety. And I went from there to Iowa State University to obtain my doctorate in veterinary medicine.
Where were you homeschooled?
Chairman Kelch, thank you. I was homeschooled in Cavalier, North Dakota. Yeah, that was my hometown.
And your wife was also?
Mm-hmm. My wife actually was originally from British Columbia, most recently from Saskatchewan, but she was also homeschooled.
Representative Meyer.
Thank you, Chairman Kelch. Dr. Stegman, do you have any data of how many homeschool students actually go on to a higher education?
Chairman Kelch, Representative Meyer. We do have data for that. I don't have it off the top of my mind. Where is Dr. Bartlett at? I'll ask Dr. Bartlett to give you that specific answer to your question. I know it's a lot.
Okay. Representative Mueller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. Stegman, one of the things I see that happens in 1211 is that we no longer require that the homeschool experience be experienced at home. Is that your intent, and is that what you all want to have happen? Because we're striking the meaning that, of course, you or your young people and a whole bunch of others can meet at a little place we used to call a schoolhouse and do homeschooling. Can you comment on that?
Certainly. Madam Chair, Representative Mueller. The answer to that question, the primary reason why we introduced that language was not so much to allow for group education, but more so to expand flexibility for parents that, for instance, are involved in construction industries or things where they're traveling throughout the U.S., where they're attending guest lectures, where I know that in Fargo, for example, there are quite a few different cooperative relationships with some of the local universities that have extracurricular classes, things of that nature. you know, I guess it potentially could extend to a situation where parents were meeting together, but our law still contains the language that it's a parent-directed process. You know, I mean, that's not a specific quote, but that's the intent. We don't have current authorization to be establishing a schoolroom per se. Now, that said, this does extend flexibility for more extracurricular things, and that may include having one homeschool dad that well, like for myself, if I were going to give an anatomy lecture or, you know, do some kind of a dissection to complement someone's biology program, that would allow them to consider that activity to be part of their educational program. Does that answer your question, sir?
You may continue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So how is that different than what we're doing in public schools today?
Very good question. Madam Chair, Representative Mueller. The basic difference is that, and it kind of gets back to that issue that I had with standardized testing. You can call us in the homeschooling control freaks, if you will, but one of the main reasons why we are homeschooling is that we have a distinct desire to, well, it has to do with the one-on-one discipleship model of home education, really. We're very interested in making sure that the things that we value are passed on to our children. That includes a view of evolutionary philosophy. It includes the list. I could give all kinds of a laundry list there. None of this is to suggest that we couldn't take advantage of those opportunities. I remember growing up, we had a fantastic public school teacher in Cavalier named Doug Fisher. He's actually gone on for a master's and a PhD now in education. But you know, he didn't homeschool. He was friendly to homeschool. He went to church with homeschoolers. But you know, as a biology teacher and as a science teacher, he routinely gave classes, and I mean, I use the term loosely, it was more like presentations, within the context of support groups or, you know, one-on-one situations. He actually even had at their property by Cavalier a kind of a summer science experience that he offered both to public school students as well as homeschool, and it was just tremendously beneficial. And so I really see those types of situations continuing, and that really harkens to my point of wanting to establish a very positive working relationship between the homeschool population and the public school, because we have the same mutual goal of a quality education. Does that answer your question, sir?
Representative Heller and then Hunsker.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Dr. Stegman. Do all the homeschoolers in the state belong to the North Dakota Homeschool Association?
Madam Chair, Representative Heller, the answer to your question about whether or not everyone's a member of the NDHSA, no, obviously not. We have a very diverse population in North Dakota, and that really comes down to this refining of our goals in the North Dakota Homeschool Association. Historically, we were viewed as being a much more of a single focus organization. Our goal is to expand our services and our comprehensive databases, basically to make it silly not to be a member. The only example I can give of that is the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, that you know, if you choose to not be a member of that organization, there are so many people involved in it, they've done so much good for us that it's just a natural extension of a parent's desire to take advantage of all these resources. So we anticipate you know, much more voluntary participation as we evolve those programs.